Last weekend, a tragedy unfolded in Waukesha, Wisconsin. An SUV driven by a man named Darrell E. Brooks barreled through a Christmas parade. 6 people have died, including most recently an 8-year-old boy, and upwards of 40 people have been injured. Brooks, who has a violent criminal record dating back to 1999, was charged on Tuesday with 5 counts of intentional homicide, and prosecutors are considering a 6th. It was a heinous, callous, cowardly attack, and eyewitness accounts are harrowing.
And I noticed him coming through the crowd, and I noticed something was not right. And then I seen kind of like just people flying as I stood up. I'm like, oh no. My daughter stood up. I threw her out of the way, and then I basically yelled, get out of the way. And my wife got out of the way, and by the time she did, the car came right past me within at least 2 feet. I could have touched the car going by.
Over the past week, there has been quite a bit of mainstream media coverage, but it's not the type you would expect. Journalists have been downplaying the attack, calling it a car crash or a parade crash, or in the case of CNN, a deadly parade, or an incident rather than a deliberate act for which the suspect has been charged with intentional homicide. But the kicker is the Washington Post, in this now deleted tweet, saying the attack was caused by an SUV. It's like they don't want to mention that there was a human behind the wheel, which is, of course, the point. The more they discuss who was behind the wheel, the more attention they draw to the fact that Darrell E. Brooks is black and his victims were white. And while outlets like CNN, MSNBC, CBS, and the rest are obsessed with race when it suits them politically, they are conspicuously quiet about it when it doesn't. In fact, the media is so intent on avoiding mentioning the alleged killer is black that one reporter tried to cut off an eyewitness account.
It was a black guy with dreadlocks by himself. I don't know if you want to use that.
Okay, well, listen, Rick.
And I'm not, listen, hey, I'm a black guy, so I'm not, saying that because I'm a white guy out of Waukesha saying black guy did it.
Okay.
But this is what her daughter said.
Rick, I should inform you right now, you are on live television. So
really?
Everything you say, we are using. So we want to be careful.
Well, I'm telling you, okay.
Not that I personally think that race is an important factor here. It's not. It rarely is. But mainstream media outlets factor race into pretty much everything nowadays, so the fact that they are pointedly excluding it is significant. So why does race suddenly not matter here when it apparently mattered so very much in the recent cases of Kyle Rittenhouse and Ahmaud Arbery? Well, if the mainstream media brought race into this discussion, they would inevitably have to confront the fact that Brooks has expressed support for Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. Black Lives Matter being, of course, the ultimate leftist sacred cow, uncriticizable no matter how much they riot. Brooks also expressed hatred for Donald Trump, anti-police sentiment, and violent anti-white sentiment on his Facebook page, all of which have been talking points of the woke Black Lives Matter obsessed mainstream media for years. But most interesting of all was the frustration Brooks expressed at the Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty verdict, which had been delivered just 2 days before in Kenosha, Wisconsin, just an hour's drive away from Waukesha, Wisconsin. It is an inescapable coincidence that this shocking tragedy took place when it did, where it did, and by someone who demonstrates anti-white, anti-Rittenhouse, pro-BLM sentiments. Now that ideology, rather than race, could be really important. Now to be clear, no motive has been ascribed yet by the authorities. We certainly don't know what Darrell E. Brooks was thinking. This is all just a matter of opinion. So, it is not unreasonable to hypothesize that maybe, just maybe, all those factors might be linked, particularly when you consider the population of Waukesha is about 78% white. As such, if leftist mainstream media journalists did bring race into it, they'd have to confront the uncomfortable possibility that, thanks to the reprehensible misinformation they willfully spread about Kyle Rittenhouse and the virulent anti-white sentiment they've been stoking for years, they may have, at least in part, motivated Darrell E. Brooks to commit the attack. I mean, it's not too much of a stretch to imagine someone being radicalized by this kind of commentary.
Black people and anybody who knows American history in this country know what white domestic terrorism looks like. Its function is to intimidate. When Ku Klux Klanners burned crosses, it wasn't to keep warm, it was to intimidate everyone who saw the flames from miles away. When white armed men went and marched in Charlottesville, it was not a family reunion. It was to strike fear in the hearts of anybody who would not bend to their dominance. So make no mistake about what Kyle Rittenhouse was doing there. He was the aggressor.
And today, what we were told was that white self-defense trumps everybody else's sense of safety and protection.
But of course, these leftist media outlets will never admit they might be a problem. They'll scream blue murder if anyone suggests it. After all, one of the things the left hates most is when someone holds a mirror up to them. Inevitably, something deeply, deeply ugly is reflected back.